in this episode.
Now, for external photography or making the patient sit on the dental chair is not a great idea because frequently the headrest is seen. The only way to achieve a pure white background is keeping a light source behind your subject. Getting a grey background or a black background is relatively simple, but I usually do not suggest a black background, especially in the Indian population, because you can stick it on the wall using blue tack, which is a putty kind of a material, but it never sets, but it's reasonably good to stick. But usually the patients retract it very well. Just keep the lens at the level of the occlusal plane and you're going to get great pictures in maximum intercuspation position. You do not have to make the patient sit on the dental chair. If you are not comfortable with this position, you can also take these images from 7 o'clock position. Ideal, but in most of the clinics, the spittoon side area would be non-accessible. So you might be forced to record this particular shot from 7 o'clock position. For maxillary full arch, it's best to record this shot at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock position. But for mandibular full arch, you have to record this particular shot from the 7 o'clock position. You're listening to the Dental Photography School podcast, where I'll be sharing practical tips on clinical and general photography. I'm Dr. Mayur Dauda, and I've been coaching dentists and dermatologists on clinical photography since 2013. If you don't want to miss out on any action, make sure to subscribe to my show because I release an episode every Saturday morning. In this episode, I'm going to be speaking about what is the best position for different pictures. So I'm going to be speaking about the patient position as well as the dentist position for different pictures. Let us start off with extraoral photography. Now, for extraoral photography or making the patient sit on the dental chair is not a great idea because frequently the headrest is seen and that looks very bad. So the best place for extraoral photography would be in front of a white wall or a gray wall or a black wall because we want a black color background or a white color background or a gray background. One thing that you need to understand is if you keep a background which is white in color, it's not going to work. You'll never get a pure white background. The only way to achieve a pure white background is keeping a light source behind your subject, but that light source should not be a continuous light source. It should be a flash light source. For example, if I keep one studio light behind the subject and one studio light in front of the subject, and the light which is behind the subject is less intense as compared to the light in front, but till the time both of them are flashes, that studio lights, it is going to be fine. Studio lights as in proper strobe lights or flashlights. But if you think you're going to get a white background with an X-ray viewer using your DSLR at high F numbers like f11 or stuff like that, it's definitely not going to happen. And if you keep a white wall, you will still have to keep a flash behind your subject, be it bouncing it on the wall and then it comes back onto the camera, or an actual light source passing through a softbox. You definitely need a flash behind your subject. So keep that in mind. Getting a white background is good, but getting it is a little tough unless you actually have or invest on a studio light for it. Getting a grey background or a black background is relatively simple, but I usually do not suggest a black background, especially in the Indian population, because they have black hair and it merges with the background. So having a black background for Indian patients or patients which have dark hair, it's not a great idea to have a black background. So ideally, the easiest possible background for extraoral photography would be a grey background. So either you can have one of the walls of your clinic spaces painted gray, matte gray, but nothing to worry about. Just go ahead and buy gray card paper or cardboard which is not going to reflect light, and just put it behind the subject. It could be like 1 meter by 1 meter, and it's definitely going to work as well. You can stick it on the wall using blue tack, which is a putty kind of a material, but it never sets, but it's reasonably good to stick card paper behind your subject. So that's one great tip that you can carry and start using it from today itself. So for extraoral photography, I would suggest that you can seat the patient, or you can actually make the subject also stand. But in clinic like mine, which has a lower ceiling height, I usually prefer that the subject is seated. Moreover, I'm just 5 feet 4 inches tall, so I'm pretty short. So if the patient is taller than me, it becomes a little difficult to take good extraoral pictures. So most of the time, I've made it a point to make the subject sit in front of me, and I sit on the dental stool right in front of the subject, which is very, very easy. Also, sitting gives you a little bit more comfort, and maybe that could reflect on your image sharpness and focusing as well. So for extraoral photography, I would definitely suggest it that do not take it on the dental chair. Just take it anywhere outside in front of a gray wall, and just be seated on a dental stool in front of your patient, and keep your lens at the eye level or the nose level for full face pictures. However, if you want to take smiling pictures, close-up smiling pictures, they are also extraoral pictures. For these particular pictures, still the patient has to sit, or the subject has to sit, and you also have to be seated on your stool. But these pictures are to be taken at a magnification ratio of 1:2 or 1:3. So you have to go pretty close to the patient. So one thing that I never forget is asking the patient to close their eyes, because the flash might be hitting their eyes really harsh. So make sure that your patient's eyes are closed, and now your lens has to be at the level of the mouth or the lips of your subject, because you are recording a complete smile of your patient. So don't forget that. In fact, I would say that a lot of the intraoral photography is also outside and not on the dental chair. Let us see which all pictures have to be taken outside, not on the dental chair, and which all pictures have to be taken on the dental chair, and how, what will be the position. So coming back to extraoral photography, for the full face, you have to be standing around 5 feet or 1 meter away from the patient. The lens has to be at the eye level, and that's about it. The subject has to be seated, and you have to be seated. But if the subject is standing, even you have to be standing. When it comes to the close-up smile, recording the close-up smile of the patient, the lens has to be at the mouth level of the subject, and you have to be seated if your subject is sitting, and you have to be standing if the subject is standing. What are the other pictures that you can take outside, extraoral pictures that you can take outside of the dental chair? All the extraoral pictures are outside the dental chair. So the profile, smiling as well as non-smiling pictures will also be outside, and even the 45 degrees smiling and non-smiling pictures are outside the dental chair. Do not take them on the dental chair, please. Now coming to intraoral pictures, the maximum intercuspation position shots and the anterior guidance shots have to be taken out of the dental chair. In fact, that is very easy to take outside the dental chair. So just be comfortable, sit right in front of the patient. This has to be at a magnification ratio of 1:2 or 1:3. It's very easy to even do the retraction if you want to do, but usually the patients retract it very well. Just keep the lens at the level of the occlusal plane, and you're going to get great pictures in maximum intercuspation position. You do not have to make the patient sit on the dental chair. You just have to be right in front of your subject at 12 o'clock position, and that's it. For molar relationship shots or canine guidance shots, the patient has to look on one of the sides. So the patient's nose position would be at a 3 o'clock position or 9 o'clock position. You will be sitting at 6 o'clock position, and you've got to be bang on perpendicular to the canine. Your lens obviously has to be at the level of the occlusal plane. Again, this shot is also outside the dental chair. It's very easy to take it outside the dental chair. Now coming to anterior aesthetics. For anterior aesthetic shots, you have to come on the dental chair. Anterior aesthetic shots are not only pre-operative shots, they could be operative shots as well as post-operative shots. So you cannot always ask the patient to come out of the dental chair. So make it a habit to take anterior aesthetic close-up shots on the dental chair. I would suggest the listeners to take the anterior aesthetic close-up images at 12 o'clock position. That means you are behind the subject's head, behind the patient's head, and your lens is bang on perpendicular to the labial surface of the incisors. If you are not comfortable with this position, you can also take these images from 7 o'clock position. You can just ask the patient to look a little bit on the right hand side. That means little bit, ask the patient to look towards you and then go ahead and take the shot. But I usually do not suggest 7 o'clock position because I'll be working at 12 o'clock position, and coming back at 7 o'clock position just to take an image might seem to be very time consuming and cumbersome. So it is best to take anterior aesthetic shots from 12 o'clock position or 11 o'clock position or 1 o'clock position. Now coming to quadrant images, which forms 90% of the pictures. If you are recording the upper quadrants, it is best to record the first quadrant or the second quadrant from 1 o'clock position or 11 o'clock position or 12 o'clock position. However, if you are recording the lower quadrants, it is best to record the third and the fourth quadrant from 7 o'clock position. Again, for full arch occlusal images also, for maxillary full arch image, it's best to record this shot at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock position. But for mandibular full arch, you have to record this particular shot from the 7 o'clock position. If you want to record the buccal aspect of the second or the third quadrant, it is best to stand at 9 o'clock position. But if you want to record the buccal aspect of the attached gingiva of the first quadrant or the fourth quadrant, you have to stand nearly at 7 o'clock position, or if you can go to the spittoon side, that is around 3 o'clock position or the 5 o'clock position, that would be ideal. But in most of the clinics, the spittoon side area would be non-accessible, so you might be forced to record this particular shot from 7 o'clock position. So if you want to record the buccal aspect of the first quadrant or the fourth quadrant from the 7 o'clock position, it is wise to ask the patient to look on his right, that means towards your side, and then retract the buccal mucosa of the cheeks with the help of the mirror itself, and it's going to be very easy for you to record this shot from 7 o'clock position as well. Hopefully this episode on patient position and dentist position for dental photography would be helpful to you. If you have any questions with respect to specific shots, don't forget to email it to me on info@dentalphotographyschool.in. You can also check out the FAQ section on my website dentalphotographyschool.in. All my previous podcasts are also there on the same website. There are a lot of videos and tons of videos on my YouTube channel, Dental Photography School. Do subscribe to my podcast as well as YouTube channel so you can get an automatic notification whenever I upload a new episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends as well. That's all we have time for in this episode. If you are getting benefited from my tips, do show your love by leaving a rating and a review. For tutorials on photography, do check out my channel, Dental Photography School on YouTube. To participate in contests and live events, join the Dental Photography School Facebook and Telegram group. You can follow me on Instagram as Mayur_EOS Maestro or Dental Photography School. I'll meet you next week. Till then, keep listening, keep sharing.